She just wants to survive and pay rent, but he's an ancient, arrogant alpha who runs the city. They hate each other, but they're forced to work together to stop a catastrophe. Sounds a little cliche, but when you look at the data, this specific dynamic, the reluctant scion and the alpha authority, is the engine driving almost every major hit in urban fantasy, standard urban fantasy, right now. Hi guys, my name is Jason. I'm a fantasy author and a massive nerd for story structure. I used to work at Kindlepreneur helping authors market their work, but now I spend my time deconstructing why stories work. For this video, I analyzed a stack of high-performing bestsellers that fit this exact subgenre, specifically standard urban fantasy, because there are a lot of other related subgenres, and I used AI to help me break down their character arcs and the world-building rules to see what they all had in common. And trust me, the patterns that I found are impossible to ignore. So this video is going into both the characters and the world building of standard urban fantasy books. Just like my last video on this subject went into tropes, and I will have another video going into a step-by-step plot analysis. But for this one, we're specifically covering characters and world building. If you want to write a book that hits the charts, you have to nail the cast. The plot matters, for sure, but in urban fantasy, readers stay for the relationships. Specifically, they stay for the friction between your cast members. It isn't enough to just throw a vampire and a human in a room. You actually need specific archetypes that push each other's buttons. Let's start with your protagonist. In this specific subgenre, we call her the reluctant scion. She isn't out there looking for adventure. In fact, she is actively running away from it. And usually she is a human with dormant magic or a low magical being who is secretly the heir to something massive, like a royal elf bloodline or a legacy witch heritage or something like that. Her deepest desire isn't to save the world, it's just to pay rent or something mundane like that. She craves stability and anonymity. She wants to keep her head down because she has a paralyzing fear of her own potential. Somewhere in her past, her nature caused trauma, so she views her own power as a curse. And this defines her character flaw, which is a refusal to trust. She thinks isolation is safety. The arc here is crucial. You can't just have her decide to be a hero on page 1. She needs an inciting incident that threatens her safety or the safety of a loved one, and this forces her out of the shadows. As the story moves forward, she hits a dark night of the soul, where her refusal to use her power leads to a genuine loss. That's the pivot point. She has to stop surviving and start fighting, culminating in a public display of that forbidden power that she's been hiding. She shatters the Masquerade to save her found family, transitions from a victim to a warrior. Now, you need someone to annoy her. Enter the Alpha Authority. This is almost always the love interest. He is a complete opposite of the scion, and while she is hiding, he is ruling. He is a rigid enforcer of the status quo. Think king, commander, or prince. He holds immense wealth, lethal skill, and usually runs the city's supernatural politics. His flaw is arrogance. He has been at the top of the food chain for centuries, which leads to emotional detachment. And he doesn't ask for help. Instead, he solves problems with brute force or intimidation. And when he first meets the protagonist, he shouldn't really like her. He should view her with suspicion or disdain. To him, she is just a tool to fix a problem, or worse, a chaotic element threatening his orderly world. The romance arc comes from the shift in his motivation. He watches the scion survive things that should kill her. He sees her resilience, and slowly his motivation shifts from professional duty to intense, possessive protection. He doesn't change who he is, but he changes who he is loyal to. By the end, he is willing to break the very codes he spent centuries enforcing just to stand beside her, and he stops seeing her as a subordinate and acknowledges her as an equal. Every good hero needs a dark reflection. In this genre, the antagonist is a corrupted mirror. This character usually starts as a background figure. They might be a helpful professor, a member of the magical council, or a seemingly benevolent colleague. But underneath that mask of civility, they are obsessed with power. Their arc reveals a descent into megalomania. They want to harness the same type of power that the protagonist has, but unlike the hero, they have no moral brakes. They feel entitled to this power because of some past slight or injustice, and their fatal flaw is hubris. They view other living beings as batteries or resources, and this creates a perfect thematic conflict. The protagonist has the power, but refuses to use it because she fears hurting people. The antagonist craves the power and will hurt anyone to get it. The story ends when the antagonist destroys themselves trying to wield forces that they cannot control, usually because they underestimated the loyalty and love that empowers the hero. And you can't have unparalleled angst without some comic relief. So that's where we get the chaotic familiar. This character is introduced as a nuisance or maybe a pet, like a small troll or a brownie or something like that. And they love things like snacks or pop culture or just making a mess, but this is a feint. They bond fiercely with the protagonist, and in the climax, you let the mask drop. The familiar undergoes some kind of transformation or reveals a terrifying level of power that turns the tide of battle, and it proves the protagonist's worldview, even monsters deserve protection. And to balance out the magic, you need the mundane anchor. This is a best friend or roommate who represents the normal life that the hero is trying to keep. Their arc is tragic, but necessary. They start in blissful ignorance, then they get victimized, which could be like kidnapped or attacked or something like that. And this is the catalyst that forces the hero to stop holding back. The anchor survives, but they lose their innocence. By accepting the hero's true nature, they prove that the hero doesn't have to be alone. Finally, you need a mentor figure, but not the wise old wizard type. You want the ancient guardian. This is a figure of immense power living on the edge of the conflict, so maybe an elemental lord or vampire elder. Initially, they are neutral. They don't want to get involved. They treat the protagonist with skepticism or tough love. But as the threat escalates, they step in. They provide sanctuary and defense, effectively adopting the hero into a found family. They validate the hero's worth to the wider magical society, and their flaw is that they are a bit cryptic and cynical, prioritizing the big picture over individual lives until the hero compromises their emotions. But character dynamics are only half the battle. You need a sandbox for them to play in. By the way, if you'd like to learn more about how to build characters and world building like this for urban fantasy, combined with AI as an author-led productivity tool to help you write 12 plus books a year easily, perhaps more, and without compromising your creativity or ethics, make sure to check out the Story Hacker Gold group linked in the description. Now let's go from characters into the world of urban fantasy. The world building in this genre isn't about inventing new planets. It's more about layering magic over the world that we already know. It's about the friction between the magical and the mundane. The reader needs to feel like this could be happening in their city right now if they just knew where to look. First, you need to decide on visibility. This is non-negotiable. So is the magic a secret? And in this standard model, the answer is usually yes. This is called the Masquerade. You need to establish the mechanics of this secrecy early. Is it a magical barrier? Are there cleanup crews that wipe memories? Or is it a strict self-policing by a council where the penalty for exposure is death? This secrecy drives the plot. You can use modern technology to crank up the tension. For instance, everyone has a smartphone camera and there's surveillance everywhere. The threat of exposure creates immediate stakes. And if the veil thins or if the protagonist gets sloppy, the consequences should be catastrophic. Next, you construct the parallel reality. This is the world within a world, the magical society that operates in the shadows of skyscrapers and subway tunnels. It mirrors human complexity but adds supernatural danger. Maybe they are separated by dimensional portals, or maybe they occupy the same space but require the sight to perceive. And this duality forces your protagonist to code switch. She has to navigate a mundane job and rent payments while dealing with lethal magical politics at night. This contrast grounds the story, and if it's all magic all the time, it becomes high fantasy. So you need that gritty reality check of a double life. In this genre, magic isn't democratic. It's usually unfair. Ability is tied to genetics or species or ancient bloodlines. This creates a system of haves and have-nots, or a strict caste system. You should determine if magic is inherited or stolen. The standard move is to make the purity of bloodlines dictate power levels, and this sets up the protagonist's advantage perfectly because she is seemingly low caste but reveals a higher tier heritage. But magic must have a cost. If the hero can wave her hand and fix everything, the book is somewhat boring. So define the spend. Does using magic cause physical exhaustion? Does it trigger a predatory hunger? Does it require complex components or blood sacrifices? You can even treat magic like an addiction with withdrawal symptoms. This adds grit and also ensures high-level magic leaves a trace. If the hero uses her full power, the bad guy should be able to track her scent or something like that. This forces her to be strategic. Most established orders will have a type of magic that is outlawed. Naturally, this is ideally the magic your protagonist has. It breaks the standard rules. It mixes conflicting elements or bridges realms that should stay closed. You need a backstory for why this is feared. Maybe it corrupted a previous civilization. The existence of this taboo magic is also the primary reason that the hero is hunted. It gives the Alpha Authority a reason to be suspicious of her, and the corrupted mirror a reason to covet her. Moving on, you need specific locations to anchor the action. First, the neutral ground. These are Switzerland-like sanctuaries, like nightclubs, specialized hotels, or apothecary shops. Violence is strictly forbidden here, and this allows your hero and the villain to have a conversation without immediately killing each other. It's a place for networking and tension. Establish who runs it, usually a powerful third party who will crush anyone breaking the rules. And then you have the warded stronghold, and this is the hero's base. It should have some kind of personality, a house that rearranges its rooms, or an apartment with high-tech wards. It's just the defensive point for the found family. Just remember, to raise the stakes, this safe space must be compromised by the time you hit the climax. Contrast these with the gritty underbelly and use the textures of the modern city, like alleyways, industrial warehouses, abandoned subway lines. These are liminal spaces where the magic bleeds into the human world, and it's where the disenfranchised creatures live and where the black market operates. Finally, give the world structure. Establish a governing body like a council or a bureau or a guild. They police the supernatural community and make them morally gray, rigid, or corrupt. They exist to throw red tape in the hero's way. The protagonist often starts as a reluctant contractor or a fugitive of this organization. Populate society with recognizable species, like vampires or shifters or fae, but organize them into factions. Create tension with hierarchies, high elves versus low elves, vampire courts versus shifter clans. Place your protagonist right in the middle of these racial divides, and this forces her to become a bridge or a target. Also, don't forget the economy. How do they pay for things? Is it gold or favors or blood? Is there a black market for magical drugs or illegal artifacts? This underground economy is great for driving B-plots, and speaking of artifacts, you need some kind of MacGuffin. Ancient, semi-sentient items, creative grimoire, or a key to a locked realm. So give the object some kind of history. In fact, give the whole world a history. Create a backdrop of an ancient conflict or maybe a fallen empire that necessitated the hiding of magic. This backstory explains the current politics. The standard formula usually hints that the ancient enemy from this history is returning, and the protagonist is the only one who can stop it because of her unique bloodline. When you combine these specific character arcs with this layered, gritty world building, you get a story engine that is incredibly powerful. It hits all the emotional beats readers are looking for while providing enough action and mystery to keep the pages turning. If you really want to master this, you need to dive deeper than just a single video. And I've actually published a book that goes into much more depth on the genre of standard urban fantasy. You can buy that book, but you can also get it at no extra charge, along with many other book genre analyses by joining the Story Hacker Gold group. In that group, I take you through my entire process to go from having nothing to having your book in hand, including all of the tools that you need to market it, and we even get into how AI can help you enhance your progress without diminishing your creativity or compromising your ethics. So check out the link in the description for Story Hacker Gold, and I'll see you in the next video.